Are you ready for something out of this world? Because Elon Musk has just blown our minds yet again. Strap in as we uncover a massive miles-long structure moving on the Martian surface as reported by Elon Musk.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Could this be humanity's next giant leap, or just another musky adventure? Join us as we dive into this cosmic conundrum and explore the Red Planet's latest sensation together. But before we begin, did you know that there have been signs of ancient floods on the Red Planet? That's crazy, right? In this video, we'll uncover all the details about the miles-long structure reported on Mars, along with perplexing tracks, peculiar objects, and Mars's hidden secrets, all discovered by Elon Musk and his company SpaceX that's at the forefront of the quest to explore the fourth rock from the sun.
Creating a self-sustaining civilization on Mars, it would be the greatest adventure ever in human history. It would be so exciting to wake up in the morning and think that that's what's happening.
You might already know that in recent years, Mars has been stealing the limelight thanks to space agencies and ambitious entrepreneurs like Elon Musk. With plans to send humans to Mars in the coming decades, visions of daily space shuttles carrying humans to the Red Planet seems almost within reach. It's like the movie Interstellar has come to life. However, dreams this big come with astronomical costs and countless challenges, but who's counting when you've got a Musk dream to fulfill? Get this, NASA's Curiosity rover alone cost $2.5 billion. So just imagine the fortune needed to transform Mars for human habitation. It's more than you can imagine, and some estimates suggest anywhere between $100 and $200 billion. But hey, what's a few $100 billion for Elon Musk to fulfill his dream, right? Now, humans have already made their mark on the moon, but NASA's Moon to Mars mission aims to send humans back to the moon in 2024, followed by Martian colonization in 2033. Which makes us wonder they might just need a few tips from the British for a successful mission. Jim Bridenstine, the administrator of NASA, announced that the Artemis project, featuring the space agency's return to the moon, includes plans for human Martian endeavors, because why stop at the moon when you can reach for Mars? Now, there are two flip sides to this cosmic coin. One side, led by Elon Musk, argues that humanity needs to venture into the stars to ensure our survival. The other side says, hold up, why not spend these hundreds of billions of dollars to fix our planet first? The debate is hotter than a supernova, but Mars remains a prime target for upcoming missions. And as it turns out, Mars is home to some mysterious anomalies, with amateur researchers claiming they've discovered peculiar tracks on the Martian surface. But of course, scientists dismiss them as having too much time on their hands, but these anomalies have sparked the interests of many. Imagine gazing at Mars' surface and spotting strange large marks accompanied by curved objects. That's precisely what happened when images from Mars surfaced, sparking wild theories and intriguing conversations. And it wasn't just the amateur researchers that were interested. Netizens were also quick to point out the two oddly close objects and their sharp turns, while others scratched their heads trying to gauge the size of these peculiar phenomena. One of the recent findings shows what appear to be tracks spanning miles, with some suggesting that something massive must have created them. Could it be ancient Martian roller coasters? Unlikely, but who knows? Guess we'll have to wait for Elon Musk to debunk this mystery for us as well. But it gets even crazier. The National UFO Center found a similar image with tracks stretching for around 86 miles. Some space enthusiasts suggest that these tracks could be remnants of an ancient civilization, which brings us to question, is the ancient civilization in question aliens? Oh Mars, you never fail to surprise us, do you? But as usual, skeptics were quick to dismiss these as mere cases of pareidolia. Eagle-eyed enthusiasts have also spotted what appears to be Martian wildlife in old Mars photographs. Remember the Mars crab from 2015 that resembled the facehuggers from the Alien franchise? Now, NASA debunked the image as pareidolia, again caused by rock formations, but that hasn't stopped people from speculating. But we can't blame them, given all these signs. It's sure to ignite some curiosity. So what's the verdict on these enigmatic Martian tracks? Are they evidence of ancient civilizations, or are they just another case of people looking too deep into natural formations? As we inch closer to setting foot on the red planet, who knows what secrets Mars holds? One thing's for sure, with Elon Musk leading the charge, we can expect things to get a whole lot more interesting. But that's not the only mile-long structure that Elon Musk discovered, which is reportedly moving on the Martian surface. The plot thickens, and there's an interesting finding that's sure to catch you off guard. Don't worry, we're getting to it, and again, it's Elon Musk to the rescue. Our real-life Tony Stark has been working tirelessly with his company SpaceX to develop the technology necessary for humans to live on the red planet, with projects like the Starship. Musk plans to establish a self-sustaining city on Mars by 2050, so you might want to start packing your spacesuit and Martian sunscreen sooner than you think. Of course, it's not all just fun and games with our favorite billionaire inventor. Musk has serious concerns about the long-term survival of humanity and sees the colonization of Mars as a crucial step in ensuring our species doesn't see the same fate as the dinosaurs did. Kudos to the big man for coming to humanity's rescue, but will we ever be living in this Martian utopia? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure, the mysterious 2,000-kilometer-long cloud on Mars is just one piece of the cosmic puzzle that NASA and Elon Musk is still trying to solve, which makes us believe that we might just be a step closer to becoming neighbors with some extraterrestrial beings. As exciting as this idea may sound, let's unwind the pressing cloud matter first. Are you ready for a thrilling deep dive into Elon Musk's discovery of the amazing Martian megacloud? Fasten your seatbelts, cosmic enthusiasts, because we're about to zoom into the incredible Martian cloud that's been leaving scientists scratching their heads. Spanning a whopping 2,000 kilometers, this mind-blowing phenomenon only appears during the red planet's summer and spring season. So what's the big deal? Well, let's find out. Picture this: every morning during Mars's warmer months, a massive cloud starts to form at the foot of the Mons volcano. In just a few hours, it grows to an astonishing 1,800 kilometers long and 150 kilometers wide. To give you a clearer picture, that's like stretching from New York City to Houston, Texas. But it doesn't stop there. This cosmic wonder then vanishes within 10 hours. So what's the secret behind this megacloud moving on Mars's surface, you wonder? Well, the star of our story is an orographic cloud formed when moisture in the wind condenses around dust particles. While Earth has its own version of these clouds, the Martian one is unique. And here's the kicker: it's made of frozen water particles instead of water vapor. Plus, its mind-boggling size makes it the largest orographic cloud ever discovered on Mars, stretching a good 2,000 kilometers. To crack the cosmic code surrounding the mystery of this ginormous cloud, scientists have turned to some high-tech gadgets like the European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter and NASA's Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution MAVEN mission. And while they've learned a lot, there's still so much to uncover, like why it only forms during certain seasons and why it's exclusive to Mons. Could the secret lie in the unique topography of the Mons region? The colossal volcano towering 20 kilometers high might play a significant role in the formation of the cloud. As the moist air surrounding the volcano is forced upwards by the mountainous terrain, the moisture condenses around dust particles, giving birth to the mesmerizing orographic cloud. Another lingering question is why the cloud appears only during specific Martian months. A possible explanation could be that seasonal changes in temperature and atmospheric pressure create conditions conducive to cloud formation, but scientists are still dedicating many sleepless nights to explore this possibility. So next time you look up at the sky and spot the red planet, remember there's a jaw-dropping, humongous cloud up there just waiting to be explored. Who knows what incredible secrets it holds? Because if we want to do our shopping trips on Mars someday, we've got to get to know our new celestial neighbor better. And this megacloud just might be the key to unveil all the details we need to know about Mars's climate, resources, and even its potential for supporting life. Better yet, Elon Musk might just be one step away from fulfilling his Martian colonization dream. But that's not all. The cloud's formation hints that Mars may be hiding some precious water deep inside. If NASA and Elon Musk can tap into that, then all we'll need is a space ticket to make Mars our home away from home. Sure, NASA claims Mars's atmosphere is too harsh to host life, but that hasn't stopped them from discovering evidence of Martian bacteria. Thanks to the tireless efforts of NASA's astrobiologists and researchers, the Curiosity rover identified traces of methane in the Martian atmosphere back in 2014, pointing to possible bacterial life. And interestingly, the methane concentrations appeared to correlate with Martian seasons, much like Earth's methane patterns. Could Mars be home to some form of life after all? The findings are nothing short of exciting and have researchers on the edge of their seats as they ponder the existence of extremophiles on the Martian surface. The study of methane on Mars is crucial as it could indicate the presence of life or geological processes. On Earth, methane is primarily produced by biological sources, but it can also be generated by geological processes, such as the interaction of water with certain minerals. As NASA and Musk strive to understand Mars's methane emissions, they must also explore the possibility of non-biological sources. However, the discovery of complex organic molecules on Mars has further fueled the search for life. These molecules, which contain carbon and hydrogen, are the building blocks of life as we know it. While the presence of organic molecules doesn't guarantee life, it does suggest the conditions necessary for life may have existed on Mars at some point. But that's not all on Elon Musk's plate. For now, another Mars mystery involves images revealing bright deposits in Martian gullies, suggesting the presence of liquid water, or Mars liquid gold if you may call it. Michael Meyer, the lead scientist for NASA's Mars exploration program, stated that these observations serve as evidence that water still flows occasionally on the surface of Mars. And with this fascinating finding, we finally know why Elon has all his money placed on it. Because if liquid water exists on Mars, it could point to the potential for microbial life. But there's a surprising twist to the tale from what researchers have explored till now. Mars's thin atmosphere and harsh temperatures mean that liquid water can't exist on the surface. So where does this water come from? Well, scientists claim that water might seep from underground sources before freezing, leaving the perplexing deposits we see today. The search for water on Mars has been a top priority for SpaceX and NASA. The thin, chilly atmosphere of the red planet makes it unlikely that liquid water could survive on the Martian surface for any length of time. Some scientists contend that hydrogen detected from orbit in this region may instead suggest salty salt, while others doubt the evidence provided by features known as recurrent slope lineae, which may have spurts of brackish water flowing on the surface. This indicates that although the diameter of this desert planet is only half that of Earth, it contains the same amount of dry terrain. The highest mountain and the longest, deepest valley in the solar system are both found on the red planet. Olympus Mons is roughly 3 times as tall as Mount Everest at 17 miles 27 kilometers in height, while the Valles Marineris system of valleys named after the Mariner 9 probe that made the discovery in 1971 extends east-west for about 2,500 miles 4,000 kilometers, covering about 1/5 of the distance around Mars and being roughly the width of Australia. According to scientists, the stretching of the crust is what caused the Valles Marineris to rift the most. The system contains individual canyons that can be up to 60 miles 100 kilometers wide. The Valles Marineris' center section, which can be up to 370 miles 600 kilometers broad, is where the canyons come together. Some canyons have large channels coming out of the ends, and the stratified sediments inside the canyons indicate that there may have once been liquid water inside. Olympus Mons, one of the largest volcanoes in the solar system, is found on Mars. The enormous volcano is large enough to include the entire state of New Mexico, with a diameter of around 370 miles 600 kilometers. Olympus Mons was formed by lava eruptions that flowed over great distances before solidifying. It is a shield volcano with slopes that rise gradually, similar to those of Hawaiian volcanoes. Other volcanic features on Mars range in size from tiny, steep-sided cones to vast plains covered in hardened lava. There may still be a few small eruptions on the planet today. Throughout Mars, there are channels, valleys, and gullies which imply that liquid water may have recently flowed across the planet's surface. There are certain channels that can be 1,200 miles 2,000 kilometers long and 60 miles 100 kilometers wide. The rock beneath may still have water in its pores and fissures. Scientists hypothesized in a 2018 study that the salty water below Mars's surface would contain a significant amount of oxygen, which could support microbial life. However, the amount of oxygen is influenced by temperature and pressure. On Mars, the tilt of the rotation axis causes periodic fluctuations in temperature. There are flat, low-lying plains throughout much of Mars. The lowest of the northern plains, which may have been formed by water that previously flowed across the surface of Mars, are among the flattest, smoothest regions in the solar system. Since the northern hemisphere is typically located at a lower elevation than the southern hemisphere, it's possible that the northern crust is thinner than the southern crust. This divergence between the north and south may be the result of a massive collision that occurred soon after Mars was born. Depending on how old the terrain is, the number of craters on Mars varies significantly from location to location. The largest crater on the planet, Hellas Planitia, is located in the southern hemisphere and is 1,400 miles, 2,300 kilometers wide in size. In contrast, the northern hemisphere's surface is younger and has fewer craters. A few craters on a volcano can also indicate that it has recently erupted because the lava that resulted covered any older craters. Some craters have unique deposits of debris surrounding them that resemble hardened mud flows, which may be evidence that the impactor struck water or ice beneath the surface. Under the ice Planum Australe, the Mars Express probe of the European Space Agency discovered what might be a slurry of water and grains in 2018. Some reports refer to it as a lake, but the amount of regolith in the water is unknown. The estimated width of this body of water is 12.4 miles, 20 kilometers. Its subsurface setting is evocative of underground lakes that are comparable to those in Antarctica and have been confirmed to contain bacteria. In the latter part of the year, Mars Express also noticed a sizable icy zone in the Korolev crater of the Red Planet. From the poles to latitudes of roughly 80 degrees in both Martian hemispheres, there are vast deposits of what seem to be stacks of water, ice, and dust that are intricately stratified. These were most likely continuously deposited by the atmosphere. Many of these stratified deposits in both hemispheres are covered in caps of water ice that are permanently frozen. Because of its considerable distance from the Sun, Mars is significantly colder than Earth. Although it can range from -195 Fahrenheit, -125 Celsius at the poles in the winter, to as high as 70 Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius at midday near the equator, the average temperature is roughly -80 Fahrenheit, -60 Celsius. Even while the atmosphere of Mars, which is rich in carbon dioxide, is typically roughly 100 times less dense than that of Earth, it is nevertheless thick enough to support weather, clouds, and winds. Seasonal variations in the atmosphere's density result from the Martian atmosphere's forced expulsion of carbon dioxide during the winter. The atmosphere was probably much thicker and capable of supporting water flowing on the planet's surface in the past. Because Mars lacks a worldwide magnetic field, lighter molecules in the atmosphere over time were forced to escape under the push of the solar wind. The NASA MAVEN, Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution mission, is now investigating this mechanism. The first conclusive evidence of carbon dioxide snow clouds was discovered by NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, making Mars the only planet in the solar system known to experience such peculiar winter weather. The dust storms on Mars can get so large as warm air pockets move in the direction of colder areas, creating winds in the process. Strong winds cause more dust to be lifted off the ground, which heats up the atmosphere and increases the wind speed and dust production. Robots operating on the Martian surface could be seriously endangered by these dust storms. For instance, the NASA Opportunity Mars rover perished after becoming trapped in a massive storm in 2018 that prevented sunlight from reaching the robot's solar panels for days on end. Furthermore, Mars has a longer year, 687 days, as opposed to 365 for our planet, since it is further from the Sun than Earth. However, Mars rotates around its axis in around 24 hours and 40 minutes, as opposed to 24 hours for Earth. Like Earth, Mars has a tilted axis to the Sun. As a result, Mars has seasons because, like Earth, some areas of the Red Planet get significantly different amounts of sunlight throughout the year. The Red Planet's elliptical, oval-shaped orbit around the Sun is more elongated than the orbits of any of the other main planets, which results in more severe seasons on Mars than on Earth. The southern hemisphere of Mars experiences a brief warm summer during its closest approach to the Sun, whereas the northern hemisphere endures a brief freezing winter. The northern hemisphere has a lengthy, mild summer when Mars is the furthest away from the Sun because it's angled toward the Sun, whereas the southern hemisphere has a long, frigid winter. Because the Red Planet lacks a big moon as Earth does, its axis tilt fluctuates wildly over time. As a result, the Martian surface has experienced many climates over time. According to a 2017 study, the shifting tilt may have also affected the methane release into Mars's atmosphere, which resulted in brief warming spells that allowed water to flow. Mars is much smaller than Earth, which has a diameter of 7,926 miles, 12,756 kilometers, and 4,220 miles, 6,791 kilometers. The red planet has a gravitational pull that is 38% less strong than Earth's. It is around 10% as big. A human weighing 100 pounds on Earth would weigh just 62 pounds on Mars, yet both planets would have the same mass. Around 4 billion years ago, Mars's magnetic field was lost globally, which allowed the solar wind to largely strip the planet of its atmosphere. However, there are parts of the planet's crust that can be at least 10 times more highly magnetized than anything that has been observed on Earth, suggesting that these parts are the remains of an earlier global magnetic field. Iron, nickel, and sulfur most likely make up Mars's solid core. Given that peridotite, which is predominantly composed of silicon, oxygen, iron, and magnesium, makes up the majority of Mars's mantle, is likely similar to Earth's mantle in this regard. Although some crustal rocks, particularly in the northern hemisphere, may be a form of andesite, a volcanic rock that contains more silica than basalt does, the majority of the crust is likely comprised of the volcanic rock basalt, which is also frequently found in the crusts of the Earth and the Moon. Since landing close to the Martian equator on November 2018, NASA's InSight lander has been exploring the Martian interior. By carefully tracking the lander's position on the planet's surface, the InSight mission team is able to quantify and analyze Mars quakes and motion changes in the planet's tilt over time. One recent estimate from the InSight team, for instance, put the planet's core size at 1,110 to 1,300 miles, 1,780 to 2,080 kilometers. According to InSight's measurements, the typical thickness of Mars's crust is between 14 and 45 miles, 24 and 72 kilometers, with the mantle making up the remainder of the planet's non-atmospheric bulk. For comparison, Earth's mantle is around 1,800 miles, 2,900 kilometers thick, and its core is nearly 4,400 miles, 7,100 kilometers wide, larger than Mars itself. The average thickness of the continental and oceanic crusts on Earth are approximately 25 miles, 40 kilometers, and 5 miles, 8 kilometers respectively. What about the Moon on Mars? Well, our red planet isn't exactly practicing monogamy. American astronomer Asaph Hall spent a week in 1877 discovering Phobos and Deimos, the two moons of Mars. Initially, Angelina, his wife, persuaded Hall to continue his search for a moon of Mars when he was about to give up. The same evening, he found Deimos, and 6 days later, Phobos. He named the moons after the sons of the Greek war god Ares. Phobos means fear, while Deimos means rout. Both Phobos and Deimos are believed to be composed of ice and a rock rich in carbon that is covered in dust and loose boulders. Since they don't have enough gravity to draw themselves into a more circular shape, they are small in comparison to Earth's moon and have an uneven shape. The widest that Phobos can become is around 17 miles, 27 kilometers, while the most that Deimos can attain is about 9 miles, 15 kilometers. Earth's moon is 2,159 miles, or 3,475 kilometers wide. The craters on each of Mars's moons are the result of meteor strikes. The surface of Phobos also has an elaborate network of grooves that may be fissures that developed after the impact that generated the largest crater on the moon, a hole that is about half the breadth of Phobos and measures around 6 miles, 10 kilometers across. The origins of Phobos and Deimos is still a mystery. They may have formed in orbit around Mars at or around the same time as the planet's formation, or they may be former asteroids that Mars's gravitational pull has absorbed. Astronomers from the University of Padova in Italy claim that ultraviolet light reflected from Phobos gives solid proof that the moon is a captured asteroid. Phobos is slowly spiraling towards Mars, getting a little bit closer to the red planet every century, about 6 feet, 1.8 meters. Phobos will either collide with Mars in 50 million years or disintegrate and leave a ring of debris around the planet. It's no more news that Mars is not a planet that's easily accessible. In their efforts to explore the red planet, NASA, Russia, the European Space Agency, China, Japan, and the Soviet Union together lost numerous spacecraft. Galileo Galilei was the first to use a telescope to see Mars in 1610. The planet's polar ice caps were found by astronomers in the century that followed. Researchers in the 19th and 20th centuries, most notably Percival Lowell, thought they observed a system of long, straight canals on Mars that might have been evidence of a past civilization. These observations turned out to be incorrect interpretations of geological features nevertheless. Over the ages, a handful of Martian rocks have fallen to Earth, giving researchers a unique chance to examine fragments of Mars without having to leave Earth. Alan Hill's 84001 ALH 84001, a Martian meteorite that may contain minute fossils and other signs of Martian life, was one of the most contentious discoveries. Other researchers have questioned this theory, but the team behind the well-known 1996 study has stuck to its conclusions, and the discussion concerning ALH 84001 is still going strong today. A different meteorite study from 2018 discovered that organic molecules, the carbon-containing building blocks of life, but not necessarily proof of life itself, may have arisen on Mars through chemical reactions akin to those in batteries. With the launch of Mariner 4 in 1964 and Mariners 6 and 7 in 1969 by the United States, robotic spacecraft started monitoring Mars in the 1960s. Early missions showed Mars to be a lifeless globe devoid of any indications of the civilizations or life that visionaries like Lowell had speculated might have existed there. When Mariner 9 orbited Mars in 1971, it mapped nearly 80% of the planet and found its volcanoes and large valleys. Several Red Planet spacecraft were also launched by the Soviet Union in the 1960s and the early 1970s. However, the majority of those missions were unsuccessful. Dust storms prevented Mars 2 and Mars 3 from successfully mapping the surface. The first successful landing on Mars occurred in 1976, when NASA's Viking 1 lander made contact with the planet's surface. 6 weeks after Viking 1, its twin Viking 2 touched down on a different part of Mars. The Viking landers captured the first up-close images of the Martian surface but did not discover any compelling proof of life. The Mars Odyssey spacecraft, which NASA launched in 2001, found enormous volumes of water ice beneath the Martian surface, particularly in the upper 3 feet 1 meter. Since the probe could not see any deeper water, it was unclear if there was additional water underneath. Mars came closer to Earth in 2003 than it had at any time in the previous 60,000 years. The same year, NASA launched 2 golf cart-sized rovers known as Spirit and Opportunity, which, after landing on Mars in January 2004, examined various areas of its surface. Numerous hints that water formerly flowed across the planet's surface were discovered by both rovers. Initially given 3-month surface missions, Spirit and Opportunity continued to rove for far longer than that. Spirit wasn't officially declared dead by NASA until 2011, and Opportunity was still operating normally up until the mid-2018 dust storm. The Curiosity rover was launched by NASA's Mars Science Laboratory mission in 2011 to look into the possibility that Mars formerly supported life. The car-sized robot quickly discovered that the region once supported a long-lived, perhaps habitable lake and stream system after arriving inside Gale Crater on the Red Planet in August 2012. Additionally, Curiosity has discovered intricate chemical compounds and recorded seasonal variations in the atmosphere's methane content. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and MAVEN Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution, which arrived at Mars in 2006 and 2014 respectively, are the other 2 orbiters operated by NASA that are now circling the planet. Mars Express and the Trace Gas Orbiter are 2 other ESA spacecraft that are in orbit around the planet. NASA successfully landed the Mars InSight lander there in November 2018. As previously mentioned, InSight is analyzing Marsquakes to learn more about the interior structure and makeup of Mars. In July 2020, NASA launched the Perseverance rover, which is searching for life and storing samples. Since the Mars 2020 mission's initial launch 2 years ago, the robot astrobiologist has provided us with fresh and occasionally unexpected views of the Red Planet. With its extensive array of scientific tools and cameras, it has so far taken more than 282,000 photos and recorded the first sounds ever made on Mars, giving a new sensory dimension to our remote exploration of the planet and aiding scientists in their understanding of its atmosphere. The sandy, arid landscape of our sister planet may not exactly appear to be a treasure trove of scientifically valuable data to the inexperienced eye. However, the rocks on Mars preserve a record of what they have been exposed to over thousands of years, just like the geology on Earth. The core of Perseverance's mission is the hunt for biosignatures, or perhaps signs of former life within those rocks. The rover traveled across the crater bottom for the initial leg of its trip and collected 8 rock samples there. In order to prevent them from endangering life on Earth, researchers want to bring them to the planet in a very challenging mission that could happen in the early 2030s. More work must be done first. The images and sounds that Perseverance has so far gathered can help us understand what the rover will explore next, and that is crucial to its quest to find prehistoric life. Through Perseverance, scientists are parsing the history of a heavily eroded river delta inside the Jezero crater, which dates back around 4 billion years to an asteroid collision. They already know the crater was once the site of a standing lake fed by a river that deposited sediment and rocks. Chemical or physical clues of long-gone life, also called biosignatures, are most likely to have been preserved in the sedimentary rocks that make up Jezero's delta, if they exist at all. Scientists are using Perseverance to piece together the history of a severely degraded river delta inside the Jezero crater, which is thought to have been formed by an asteroid collision some 4 billion years ago. They already know that the crater was previously the location of a lake that was fed by a river that dumped rocks and dirt. If there are any chemical or physical traces of past life, often known as biosignatures, they are most likely to have been preserved in the sedimentary rocks that made up the delta of Jezero. According to Katie Stack Morgan, Deputy Project Scientist for the Mars 2020 mission, these rocks often represent conditions that we think ancient life, if it existed on Mars, could have loved to be in. That's because they would have been exposed to liquid water in the delta habitat, which is necessary for life to exist on any planet as far as we know. Perseverance's exploration of the area, however, came as a surprise to the experts. They expected to find sedimentary rocks, which are accumulations of older rocks or, on Earth, long-dead animals on the floor of Jezero crater, but instead found igneous rocks, which are created when the molten rock solidifies. That implies that the crater was probably once completely filled with lava, which they did not anticipate. The potential for astrobiological discovery is not quite as high in the rock samples that have been gathered so far, because they are all igneous. They are nonetheless helpful. We now have a hazy grasp of the geologic timescale on Mars, despite the fact that igneous rocks are great timekeepers and have been used to gather geologic timeframes on Earth and the Moon. Scientists will be able to utilize the core samples Perseverance has obtained to pin significant geologic events throughout Martian history onto an actual geologic timescale with real dates, if they successfully reach Earth one day. The unexpected discovery of volcanic materials on the crater floor is actually a huge victory for the project, as Perseverance is certain to find sedimentary rocks in the river delta. Sedimentary rocks, or any igneous rocks, can teach you a lot of intriguing things, but since each of those rocks tells you something unique and different, scientists actually want to have both of them. Stromatolites are some of the earliest examples of biological activity on Earth. They are layered rock structures created by microorganisms that trapped, bound, and cemented sediments. These layers accumulated throughout time and solidified into rock, where they were preserved as geological evidence that scientists can now examine billions of years later. Perseverance might find a visual clue similar to a stromatolite on Mars that points to the existence of prehistoric life. However, since some strictly geological processes can visually resemble biological ones, it would take some time to establish such a discovery. Perseverance has a variety of bells and whistles that are intended to reveal the chemical makeup of its observations. Another potential indicator of ancient life would be the discovery of organics, the molecules that serve as the fundamental building blocks of life as we know it. Perseverance is capable of identifying these molecules. What's the plan for getting the pieces of Mars to Earth? Perseverance is now carrying 10 sealed tubes in total. One includes an atmosphere sample, one is a witness tube that was sealed when the rover was still on Earth to act as a control sample within its caching system, and the remaining 8 contain samples of rocks. For the researchers, that air sample was a disaster-turned-happy accident. The tube ran dry as they started to sample the very first rock core of Perseverance's mission. As they tried to determine what went wrong and dreaded what the outcome would suggest for the rest of the trip, researchers briefly panicked about what they labeled the case of the lost sample. However, they later learned that the initial rock wasn't the type the equipment was intended to drill and had been crushed in the process. As its first air sample, the team was able to shut up that empty tube, and since then, drilling other rocks has gone without a hitch. In preparation for a return trip, Perseverance gathers double samples, which entails taking 2 cores from each rock. But this expedition is still in the planning stages and will take years to complete. The possibility exists that the rover could deposit its samples on Mars's surface for later retrieval by another expedition. It could also keep them and eventually deliver them to the lander responsible for returning the samples to Earth. They keep their choices open for the upcoming return expedition by taking 2 samples at a time. For the time being, scientists are concentrating on learning more about the new Delta scientific program and the fresh findings that Perseverance will find there. What are the future Mars missions for humans? A NASA-led manned expedition to Mars should be feasible by the 2030s, according to a workshop group of scientists from governmental organizations, academia, and industry. Late in 2017, the Trump administration gave NASA the go-ahead to send astronauts back to the Moon before landing on Mars. By the end of the 2020s, NASA hopes to create a viable long-term human presence on and around the Moon with the Artemis program. According to NASA officials, the knowledge and expertise gained from this lunar mission will pave the road for landing on Mars. Robotic expeditions to Mars have been very successful in recent years, but sending humans there is still very difficult. Traveling to Mars would take at least 6 months using present rocket technology. Therefore, Red Planet explorers would be subjected to long periods of microgravity and radiation from deep space, both of which have terrible consequences on the human body. After many months in microgravity, doing tasks in the moderate gravity on Mars may prove to be very challenging. The International Space Station is still conducting studies into the effects of microgravity. And not just NASA has plans to staff missions to Mars. Other countries have also stated their intentions to send people to Mars, notably China and Russia. And Elon Musk, the founder and CEO of SpaceX, has frequently emphasized that he founded the company in 2002 specifically to aid humanity in colonizing Mars. Starship, a fully reusable deep space transportation system that SpaceX is currently designing and testing, is what Elon Musk hopes will finally enable human habitation of Mars. The US Space Agency has already contracted SpaceX to provide a version of the Starship system to land astronauts on the Moon's surface later this decade. Elon Musk claims that once fully developed, the Starship system will be more than capable of taking humans to the Moon and Mars. When? We can't really say, but remember, Elon Musk always delivers on his promises. Let us know what you think about the terrifying new discovery on Mars in the comments section below.